Hello students, how are you all? Welcome to NEET Biology. This is Prafull. I hope you all are doing fine. In today's video, we are going to discuss another very important topic which is part of 11th standard NCERT Biology. The name of the chapter is Anatomy of Flowering Plants. So dear students, today we are going to discuss another very important question which has appeared in NEET 2023 Biology. So are you all ready for this particular video? Let's begin with the video. So dear students, in NEET 2023 Biology paper, there was this particular question which was of assertion and reason type. So let me read the question for you all. The question is, assertion A, late wood has fewer xylem elements with narrow vessels, and the reason R is cambium is less active in winters. So dear students, in such type of questions, we have to find out whether the assertion is right and the reason is also right which is supporting the assertion, or whether the assertion is right but the reason is wrong, or whether assertion is wrong and reason is right, or whether both are wrong. So as basically we have to see which of the following options are correct out of the four options which have been mentioned in this particular question. So dear students, we all know that in plants there is majorly two types of growth. One is mainly called as the primary growth and the second is called as the secondary growth. Now what exactly is the primary growth? Now dear students, primary growth means it is the increase in the length of the plants. So when I say increase in the length of the plants, it means that increase in the length of the stems of the plants or increase in the roots of the plants. Even it can be increase in the size of the leaves, it can be increase in the size of the branches, etc. So majorly this increase in the length of the plants is majorly because of the cells which are nothing but the meristematic cells of the plant, and these meristematic cells are primarily present in the seeds of the plant, or you can also consider as the embryo of the plant. So meristematic cells have the ability to divide and ultimately they are helping in the growth of the plants. Now talking about the another type of growth which is called as the secondary growth. The secondary growth is also because of the meristematic tissue, but this secondary growth is not because of the early meristematic tissue, it is because of the secondary meristematic tissue which is also known as the cambium tissue. So in secondary growth majorly there is increase in the width of the plant. So when we talk about the width of the plant, it means it can be the girth of the plant. So this is majorly because of the tissue which is called as the cambium tissue, which is a type of a secondary meristematic tissue. So as you can see that in this particular diagram, the primary growth of the plants is majorly because of the meristematic cells which are present in the tips of the plant. So there are meristematic cells which are present in the shoot tips which are called as the shoot apical meristem, whereas there are meristematic cells which are also present in the root tips which are called as the root apical meristem. Now talking about the secondary growth, dear students, as you can see in this particular diagram, that the secondary growth is majorly increase in the width of the plant. So in nature, whenever we see the tall big woody trees, and you can see that the stems of such plants are quite wide. So this increase in the width of the tall trees is majorly because of the important tissue which is called as the cambium tissue, and the cambium tissue is nothing but a type of secondary meristematic tissue which is formed later in plants from the primary meristematic tissue. So this increase in the width of the stems is mainly known as the secondary growth. Now dear students, this is the image of the anatomy of the stems or the roots also. Now if you consider the anatomy of stem or the root, you can see, dear students, that there are different layers in the anatomy of the stems as well as the roots. So what are these different layers? The layers are basically nothing but the layers of different types of cells. So when we talk about the different layers of cells, starting from the outside to inside, if you talk about the outermost layer, it is known as the epidermis. So epidermis is the outermost layer. Then comes the below the epidermis, the layer which is known as the hypodermis, and this hypodermis layer is also known as the cortex in case of the anatomy of stems as well as the roots. So this cortex is mainly made up of the parenchyma cells which are nothing but a type of simple permanent tissue. So the innermost layer below the cortex is known as the endodermis layer. Now this is the innermost layer which is actually important because this consists of different cells. These are known as the barrel shaped cells, and the cell walls of these endodermis layer are quite thick, and the thickness is majorly because of the deposition of a wax like substance which is known as suberin. So below the endodermis there is another layer which is known as pericycle, again a layer which is made up of parenchyma cells, and below pericycle there is layer called as phloem, and phloem is a vascular tissue, we all know that, which helps in the transport of food in plants basically. So majorly the transport of the food occurs through the phloem tissue in plants. Then talking about below the phloem, dear students, there is now the important layer which is called as the cambium tissue. And as we all now just said that cambium is majorly responsible for secondary growth in plants. That is nothing but it helps in increasing the thickness of the stems as well as the roots. So remember, the cambium tissue is present now below the phloem. After the cambium tissue comes another very important layer which is called as xylem, and xylem is, as we all know, that it is a vascular layer. So majorly xylem is responsible for transport of water and minerals in plants, and the movement of the water is the upward movement. Of course, it goes from the roots to the uppermost part of the plant, that is the leaves of the plant. And below the xylem, the innermost part of the stem or the root is known as the pith of the plant. Pith basically again includes the layer of parenchyma cells, mainly helping in the storage of certain substances in case of plants, like for example tannins, the waste substances, the waste products. So all these are stored inside the piths of the plant. In this particular diagram again you can see different layers majorly of the anatomy of stem. So you can see that different layers, like for example the cortex, the secondary phloem, and the secondary layer, the secondary xylem, the pith. Also remember, dear students, the secondary phloem and the secondary xylem are the layers which are formed later in the plants, and that's why they're called as secondary, because they are formed from the primary meristematic tissue, that is the primary xylem and the primary phloem. Now dear students, talking about the cambium layer, so there are two types of cambium. One is called as the intrafascicular cambium and the other is interfascicular cambium. Now what is exactly intrafascicular cambium? We just now said that the cambium is mainly a secondary meristematic tissue which is formed from the primary meristematic tissue, and cambium is responsible for increasing the thickness of the stems as well as the roots. Now dear students, the cambium which is present inside the vascular bundles, that is which is present inside the xylem and the phloem, that is known as the intrafascicular cambium. But the cambium which is present in between the vascular bundles, that is called as the interfascicular cambium. So dear students, what happens is this intra and interfascicular cambium keeps on dividing and ultimately it forms a ring-like structure. So it becomes a ring-like structure which is majorly known as the cambial ring. Remember this one important layer which is part of the outermost part of the stem as well as the root. This is known as the cork cambium. The cork, which is nothing but basically the outermost dead layer of the plants, and that is formed from the outermost meristematic cells which are the cortex. So the cortex cells keep on dividing and they form this outermost dead layer which is called as the cork cambium. So now dear students, you have to understand two very important concepts. One is called as the spring wood and the other is known as the autumn wood. So dear student, what is exactly spring wood and what is autumn wood? Spring wood is basically nothing but, dear student, the xylem vessels which are present inside the roots as well as the stems of the plant. Now we all know that xylem vessels are majorly responsible for the transport of water and minerals. Now talking about the weather, there are two major seasons, that is nothing but the spring and the autumn. Now springtime, dear students, as we all know that the temperatures are pretty high. So during the springtime, when the temperatures, the outside environment, the temperature is high, because of that the plants undergoes more amount of transpiration. So that means the plants undergo a lot of loss in the form of water during the spring season, and in order to compensate for this water loss, the vessels basically during the spring season become wider, and so that more amount of water is actually flowing through the vessels during the springtime, and hence the color of this particular vessels appears lightish in color during the springtime. Now this particular xylem vessels during the springtime are majorly considered as the early wood. Now talking about the winter season. Now in the winter season, the outside temperature in the environment is low. There is less humidity in the atmosphere. Now because of the low temperature, again the transpiration is less. That means the plants are losing less water to the environment. So because the plants are losing the less water, the xylem vessels during the winter season become narrower. So because the vessels become narrower, less amount of water is flowing through the vessels and the color of the vessels become darker. So the xylem vessels during the autumn season are basically considered as the late wood. So majorly in plants we can consider there are two types of wood, that is the early wood or the late wood. The early wood is known as the spring wood and the late wood is known as the autumn wood. The spring wood is lighter in color, the late wood is darker in color. So basically this early wood and late wood, that is the spring wood and the autumn wood, together form alternate rings. That is, one is the lighter ring. So spring wood represents a lighter ring-like structure, whereas the autumn wood represents a darker ring-like structure. So these alternate light and dark rings are considered as the annual rings of the plant. In this particular diagram, there are many alternate rings inside the wood of the plant. So these alternate rings, that is the alternate light and dark rings inside the TS of the stem of the plants, they can estimate actually the age of the tree. So dear students, that's how the scientists actually calculate the age of a particular tree by calculating the number of these particular annual rings. Now dear students, finally coming back to the question was asking us that basically the assertion was late wood has fewer xylem elements with narrow vessels, and the reason for that is cambium is less active in winters. So now as we have understood the concept of what is early wood and what is late wood, that is early wood is spring wood, late wood is autumn wood. So here the assertion late wood is saying that fewer early elements with narrow vessels, so that they are talking about the late wood, that means they are talking about autumn wood. So the assertion is right. Second reason, that is cambium is less active in winters. So just now we said that yes, the xylem vessels are less active in winters because there is less amount of transpiration during the winter time, so less amount of water is actually flowing. So dear students, again the reason is also right for this particular question. So based on this we can say that both assertion and reason are right, and reason R is supporting assertion A. So the correct option for this particular question is nothing but option number 1, that is both A and R are true, and R is the correct explanation of A. So dear students, I hope you have understood the concept of primary and secondary growth in plants. You have also understood what is exactly early wood, what is late wood. If you have any doubts or suggestions, please let me know in the comment section. If you want me to make videos on any other topic of biology, do let me know in the comment section, dear students. So till that time, take care of yourself. This is Prafull signing off. Thank you so much. And also, if you are new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel and like and share the video with your friends as much as possible, dear students.